Hello, everybody. I would like to welcome you to our newest series of our podcast for Kiawah Island community. My name is Michael Heidingsfelder. I'm one of the councilmen for the town of Kiawah. And we are, as we promised, here today to give you a little bit more insight about other people than just town people who have been working very hard over the last decades to protect our environment and our wildlife. So we have here today two people from the Conservancy, Donna Windham, she is the Executive Director of the Conservancy, and Roland Hoffman, who is the Chair of the Trustees. So thank you both for being here today.
Thank you.
And making yourself available for the community. We are in the beautiful Night Heron Park. What a better location we could think of for talking about environment and nature and wildlife. But before we do so, maybe we start on a little, lighter note. I know many people in the community know you, of course, certainly by name and by function, but I think maybe not everybody knows a little bit about you as a person. So Donna, maybe you start. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, how you ended up here, and how you could become so passionate about environment.
Well, first, Michael, thank you so much for hosting this podcast and really opening up opportunities for community organizations such as ours to be part of this. We really appreciate it. And I came to Kiawah like many people for the first time and was overwhelmed with the beauty. It was on September the 3rd, Labor Day. I had an interview. I was running a statewide organization. I had small children and had really decided I'd be a stay-at-home mom. And I had a friend who was doing a search for the executive director. Say, just go talk with them, and see if you like it. And I thought I'd stay a couple years and get them kind of started because it was the beginning stages of the Conservancy. And now, 24 years later, I'm still here. And I just feel like the Conservancy has contributed, been a part of something meaningful for the island and for the community and for the state of South Carolina. So it's been a real pleasure.
I mean, Donna, every time I meet you, you are such an inspiration. You're talking about these things like nobody else can. Why is that? Why did that all come so close to you?
Well, I had no background in environmental. My background is in public affairs and government and communications. And so this was something totally new to me. So I had the first 5 years of really in-depth learning at the heels of so many volunteers that were passionate about the environment. So I really had a learning lesson and a learning curve. And I think that's why it was exciting to me, was that I'm a lifelong learner. And so this was a great opportunity for me to become passionate about.
Wonderful. Roland, as I said, a lot of people know your name, but don't know really what you do for the Conservancy. I mean, you're the chair of the trustees, which is a very important role. I think also that works very closely with Donna on strategy and forward-looking actions. So how did you come up to this? So how did you become so passionate?
I came here like a lot of people. I was a forensic CPA, and after Hugo, there was a lot of work in Charleston. And I had grown up in Augusta, Georgia. I knew Charleston a little bit, not that much. But anyway, I was doing a lot of work down here. And one of the guys I was with had a golf outing planned here at Kiawah and invited me along. And obviously the golf just won me over. But at the same time, my wife back in Charlotte was in a babysitting group where mothers would trade off and babysit each other's kids. And someone one day put a flyer in the mailbox about renting a villa at Kiawah Island. One of the other ladies did it, said, you got to go. Mary did it. And at that point, I just said, I want to live here. And it took me a while, but I convinced her, and then we finally retired here. So what Kiawah has is what drew me here.
I mean, what always fascinates me is that the stories are always the same, right? I mean, I could tell exactly the same story. But then you could also have just enjoy it, play golf, and do your things. Why did you get yourself into this Conservancy business?
Well, I grew up outside Augusta, Georgia, a rural setting, the typical dead-end dirt road. But every morning we got up and we were outside. We, hunted, fished, played in the woods, whatever we wanted to do. So I was always outside doing something. And when I came here, it was just, it was 30-something years ago. So it was a lot different. We could still take tours and ride beach at that point.
Yeah.
So it was just a fun playground is what it was. And I enjoyed it. My kids, from the time we first started coming down here, we rented a villa and then we bought a house. But I never once worried of them getting on their bike, coming up here to Night Heron to play basketball. It was just a place you can do that.
Yeah.
And not worry. It's like everything's here now. And I wanted it to be that not only for me, but for them too. And they now bring their children back. So it was one of those things that just, it evolved. I met people with the Conservancy and played golf with them. Then I met Donna. And so
I can be very persuasive.
And really, when I started out, I got into it because I had an accounting background, and they were talking about they needed a treasurer. So that's how I got into it. And then I've just stayed.
Okay. And ever since.
Ever since, that's right.
So I don't know if a lot of people know that the Conservancy is more than 25 years old, I believe now. 26 years, if I remember correctly. And I still remember when I came, more often to the island, and my wife was very passionate about it. I was reading more. It's amazing how many areas you get really involved in, right? Maybe you tell us a little bit. So what are the main building blocks of what the Conservancy looks at or works hard to provide the community with everything you do?
Well, I'll start. And from my standpoint, there is a great Conservancy staff. We have people in all types of work. I call him our scientist, but Lee Bundrick is in charge of, the environment and the ecological health studies that he's been very successful in getting grants, do groundwater studies, native plant studies, things like that. We have land management and goes out and Kali tries to find properties for us to, either have donated or purchase or a little bit of both and things like that. So it's easy for me from that standpoint because I did not come up with that. I mean, I was an accountant. But we're involved in animal habitat, land preservation. We're a certified land trust in the United States. So that's what we're involved in. Our new 2030 program sets new goals for us that we are a lot into, and we can talk about that and what we plan on doing or want to do. So, everything we do is science-based and is about the environment itself.
And at the end of the day, we are a land trust. Everything that we do from a science and research standpoint is for habitat preservation. That's how we are accredited as a nonprofit. And at our heart of our mission is to protect wildlife habitat. And we do that on the island. And as Roland alluded to, we're now moving off the island because that's part of Kiawah does not stop at the river. We drive through Johns Island, and that watershed affects us. And as we now have developed a history here on the island, we're now able to carry that history and experience off the island.
So I think different to other conservancies in this state and elsewhere, I mean, they really focus a lot on the land portion. Why did the Kiawah Conservancy, focus so much of your staff, your attention, and the money you spend on behalf of all of us on the science side? Because that's quite unusual.
It is unusual, and it sets us apart in the Land Trust Alliance field. We are one of almost 2,000 land trusts in the United States. We are one of even a smaller group, about 500, that are accredited and accredited for a second time. So that's very significant. But the science, everything we do in science leads us to the best habitats to provide because we don't have endless amounts of money. Our money is very protected and put to use to preserve land. And so every science project we work on, every endeavor that we work with the town, with the community, is all directed as what habitat can we work to preserve to make this island even better.
I mean, this is really something I would like to encourage the community to really go to the Conservancy website. It's an absolutely amazing how much information you provide. And when I did go through a few things on my property that I wanted to change, towards green, so to speak, I found everything I wanted. I found every information about the right plants to use, the right measures to take to stop erosion. I started educating myself about permeable surfaces, etc. It is really incredible what the Conservancy provides. Now, let's move on to another aspect. As a liaison for the town council to the Conservancy, I started to come to your meetings more often, and I'm always blown away by this incredible staff is one, but also by the community members that volunteer. And you seem to have the ability to not only make them so passionate about it, but really stay and do this for years and years and years. So why do you think that is? Why is this community willing to spend their time and even their money, on this purpose?
Yeah, I think it boils down to what they experience when they get here. Like I did, I knew immediately that was it. And it's such an enjoyable place. As far as, staff, Donna's got a wonderful staff. And we don't have to make them passionate.
Yeah.
They're making us passionate. So that's, and I think the community picks up on that.
Yeah.
Just this morning we had an executive committee meeting, and someone brought up, how do we get somebody else involved? Because they've come to them and said, I would like to get on one of the committees, just see what's going on and get in there. So it's not hard to go out to the community and get volunteers.
Yes.
And when you have a leader like Donna and the staff she has, extremely easy.
Yeah. So you're all based on donations, right? Everything you do, the whole, setup of your staff, all your activities. So tell us a little bit about who are these donors?
Well, they're Kiawah property owners. We have not really done the whole foundation searches yet. We're beginning to do that through family funds and through foundations that are now contacting us saying, we hear about the work you're doing, we would like to support you. So we are beginning to write grants and requests for those funds. We have worked with the town and received funds for specific projects that we conduct that are beneficial to the entire community. They do not support any of our salaries. It is for product and information that will better the community through education, everything we do. So those are the ways that we have received money in the past. Now, because we are going beyond the gate, we have the opportunity now to acquire money through Greenbelt funds and through the state conservation bank. Those funds cannot be used behind the gate, but any type of properties or projects that we want to work on off island, we can do that now with those dollars. And so we're beginning to get those.
Yeah. So let us talk a little bit about this. And Ronald, you mentioned already your 2030 strategy.
Goals, yeah.
And I think that's something the community really needs to understand, because so far, but please correct me if I'm wrong, but so far you really focus on the island, right? But I think as Donna said earlier, we need to look at this holistically. I mean, our ecosystem doesn't end at the bridge, right? And we are not influencing half of the Kiawah River. The other half of the Kiawah River is also part of where we live and how we protect our wildlife. So tell us a little bit about 2030, the strategy. So why did you go out, and what are the boundaries, and what are you trying to do because I think this is still something where the community is need a little bit more background and information.
As far as background, let me just tell you, the year of 2020, when everyone was in COVID, we were on Zoom calls about 3 to 4 times a week for 4 to 5 hours a day, working on our strategic plan, working on what we needed to do. So it was a really robust effort by our board and staff to build our 2030 vision. And as you said, the watershed just kept coming up. The watershed is going to affect, and as we now know through our marsh management studies and work, the water is what's going to make a difference to this island. And so we started looking at development after 2020. As we all know, development down Betsy Harrison to the traffic light just really started to boom. And
also, towards the east.
Absolutely.
We look at the Kiawah River, etc.
Absolutely. So moving from the traffic light back toward the island, which we all travel every day just about, we felt like there needed to be some protection because habitat still needs a place. And if you go to the town's website and look at the bobcat tracking, you can easily see the bobcats that we so love on this island are over there as well, and they need habitat. And so we started looking into how we could make a difference. And so that led us to looking at properties and start beginning to investigate what we could work on and work with green belt funds, with state funds. And so those are all things that we will continue to do.
And because you brought up the traffic light, which is basically the intersection between, Betsy Harrison into Bohicket and where River Road comes in. Is that a little bit kind of the boundary that you see, or is more like Kiawah River the boundary? I mean, where do you see your focus?
That is the boundary. That's as far as we feel like, as a small staff, that we can manage. Yeah. There's many properties. And what we need to remember is some of those properties were bought and given rights by the county years ago. Yeah. They were already slated for development. But now, as the island has become more populated and full-time residents have increased, the need or the desire or the want by these developers is to go ahead and start building. And so it's an opportunity for us, before they're built, to say, would you be willing to sell? Can we work a bargain sale with you? Would you, all the tools in our toolbox we're trying to use to see that as much land as possible is preserved.
Yeah. And my understanding also, this important move, a little further than the bridge, so to speak, also opens you up to new funding.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that's also important for us to understand, that we can actually do more now than with just the donations that are coming in from the residents, and I assume also from the resort and from other for-profit organizations. All right, so let's talk a little bit about a more controversial topic, right? So I received a lot of questions from community members in the last couple of months, why the Conservancy in certain cases is not, more decisive and more clear in the boundaries, right? So Mingo Point comes to the plate here. So this is a situation where we have an old dock, it needs to be replaced. Question came up, is it just being replaced? Is this moved? Is the dock moved out further into the river? I think a lot of community members will remember this discussion back in February, March, I believe. Conservancy did a lot of informational campaigning about, making sure everybody understands what's the right thing to do, what is not the right thing to do. But community member felt like, but then why are they not telling us how far out in the river it should go? That was something that a lot of people, and me included, were not clear why. So maybe you both help us a little bit in better understanding, where are you borderline?
We can. And that started when the proposal was put forward, and we met with the Conservancy staff, and we instructed them to talk with all the interested parties, do the science, do the research, and come up with everything that would be affected by that decision, whether it was the marsh, the river, boat traffic, whatever, and do it based on facts. That's all we had. And then we would turn that over, and we made a presentation at the meeting to the board, zoning board.
Zoning board, yeah.
And said, here are the facts. And we studied them, and this is what will happen, this is what won't happen, and things like that. And it was then up to the board to make that decision. We, even though our goals say we're advocates, but we're advocates for the animals and the habitat and the land. And that's what we were doing. It's up to somebody else that has the power to make that decision, because developers have the right to develop things. We're just trying to work with them to get the best we can for the animals, the habitat, the environment, and us.
Yeah.
Well, when we were asked to do this, I instructed the staff, this has got to be fact-based. And I don't want to take anything that is not truthful, take emotion and personality out of it, and really focus on the facts. And that's what they did. And as they said in many of the meetings that we attended, we'd rather for there never to be a disruption on the river. But that's going to happen. They have the right to do this. And in this case, it was very helpful. It was a safety issue. It was going to be helpful to the environment. So we said, yes, a change needs to be made for the environment. Now, how far we looked at OCRM, we worked with all the powers that be. We don't make those decisions. We said what the opportunities were there for the BZA to make the right decision. In this case, they decided to stay with where the town line was. And the only fallback or negative to that is now the community, the resort is going to have to go in another 5 years or so as the river shifts, go back and do this again, possibly. We hate that because any disruption to the environment is not good, but at least it got it off of the Pluff Mud and the marsh area.
Yeah. And stop the destroying the marsh, right? And nobody knows how nature reacts. Maybe in 5 years, the shift of the river goes eastbound. So we don't know.
You have to deal with the facts that you're given at the time to make the best decision possible.
And then it's really up to the town in this particular case to make these decisions, right? Based on facts and our ordinances. Wonderful. So thank you for giving us all these insights into the work of this so important organization here on the island. And I think we can really be blessed as a community to have not only the two of you, but I mean the whole team of people and volunteers that work it. I think it's a wonderful thing. So before we close, any final comments you want to make?
Well, I just want to encourage anyone watching, if they want to get involved with the Conservancy, please do so. Give us a call. Volunteer your time. If not to us, volunteer your time to our community. Anytime we work together and we sit down at a table and we solve problems together, we're so much better. We're a better community. We're a better organization when people are involved, and having a civil discussion with one another and speaking openly and kindly, and it makes a better place.
I'd go back to my opening comment about why I got involved, and I wanted myself, my children to do it. They're bringing their children back. For the second year, our granddaughter will come spend some summertime with us. Last year, she went on turtle patrol with us, and she wants to do it again this year. So we're bringing that back in. But I've experienced, and I think we've all experienced it, when we come down the road and we cross the Kiawah River Bridge, things kind of lighten up, and just tell people, when you cross that bridge, leave the big bad world behind you, come here and enjoy our playground.
I cannot agree more. Thank you. Thank you very much for the both of you to be here with me today. I think that was a wonderful conversation we had for the community. So everybody back home, thank you for tuning in. I hope you found everything we talked about, not only informative, but also encouraging to be part of this community. Last to say, we have more of these wonderful podcasts coming down the road in the next couple of weeks. We have a really interesting lineup all the way to July of people that are not only related to the town or Kika, but also really related to our community. So stay tuned, read the e-newsletter of the town of Kiawah Island, and you will be informed in time and will not miss any of those podcasts in the future. So thanks again for tuning in, and see you next time. Thank you.